So good afternoon, everyone. Before I get started with the slides, I want to take a poll in the old-fashioned way. So this session focuses on KP-led services. So I'd like to ask everyone in the room whether or not you think that MSM-led services can be done in a high-quality way. If you agree, raise your hand. Woohoo! That's great. I see some people in the back who didn't raise their hand, but hopefully at the end of my talk and the other speakers, everyone will have their hands up. So I'll be presenting on reaching MSM with meaningful HIV services, new media, new messages, and new models. So I want to take you back in time to 2015. At that time, there was data that indicated high and increasing rates of HIV among MSM in urban areas. And to give you an example, of a range between 13% and 16% in Ho Chi Minh City. And MSM were the only key population with increasing HIV prevalence. Now, at the same time, there was relatively low and flat HIV testing uptake annually among MSM. And MSM CBOs, although there were many and they were quite strong, they were not allowed to offer HIV services. And this was despite the fact that there was significant research which indicated that MSM wanted services delivered in the community by MSM organizations because they felt they would be more convenient and more confidential. And last, at this time, much of the HIV prevention interventions, not all, but a lot of them, were offered through traditional communication style and face-to-face peer education. So this equaled a big problem. There was both a service, oh, sorry, too loud, too much passion, okay. There was both a service, supply, and demand problem. So this obviously wasn't working very well. So we asked ourselves the question, which MSM are being reached right now? You know, and it was clear that MSM who were being contacted through face-to-face peer education were being reached. But there's a size estimation that was conducted in Vietnam that there are 330,000 MSM. That number is debated, and many believe there are many more than that. But even with that size estimation, the belief was only about a quarter of MSM were being reached. So then the question was, where were the other MSM? And how could we reach them? Data indicated that many MSM in Vietnam, as in many other countries, were online, and that was likely a much larger proportion of MSM than could be reached through face-to-face interactions. It's clear that there's also some MSM that don't want to be reached, and that was also really important in our thinking about how we were going to approach new messaging, new media, and new models. But the intent overall was to expand reach beyond what was being done previously, focusing on face-to-face. There were also a number of opportunities in Vietnam at that time. We conducted a study in 4 urban areas and found that 89% of MSM had a smartphone, and almost everyone, of course, had a social media account, mostly Facebook. At this time, there were also a number of very strong MSM CBOs in urban areas that were keen to do more. And very interestingly, because in Vietnam it's a little bit difficult as a CBO in terms of your legal registration, and also with declining external donor funding, there was this opportunity that opened up with being able to register as a social enterprise, and thereby to be able to earn income and utilize that income to fund HIV prevention or other social services in the community. And lastly, we saw a private sector that was interested in Vietnam in contributing to social good. And last and very key, the Ministry of Health had adopted the 90-90-90 guidelines, and they were very interested, given how low and flat HIV testing uptake was. There was quite a lot of interest in looking at new models of HIV testing, new ways to deliver services, which was very exciting. So where to start? We focused first on leveraging new media. So we worked together with MSM leaders in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi to co-create a campaign that was called My Future, My Choice. It's an aspirational, fun, and very pro-sex campaign. And it focuses on 3 key objectives. The first was to increase awareness of HIV prevention and other HIV services, and also, very importantly, to generate trust for HIV services, including testing, PrEP, STI services, and treatment. And lastly, of course, to motivate action, to use and to buy condoms, to get tested for HIV and STIs, to get assessed for PrEP, and to enroll on treatment if HIV positive. So in August 2015, we launched the Rainbow Hamlet Facebook page. And after that, began to partner with MTV, with Grindr and Hornet. This is an approach being taken in a number of countries in the region. And it's really interesting because you're able to then segment reaching younger MSM, reaching older MSM, and combining different sources of reach, media reach. So I want to share some key results from the Facebook work. So first of all, there are around 223 fans of Rainbow Hamlet. And we have tracked the metrics over time, and this is a very young group. Most of them are between the age of 13 and 24, and most of them live in urban areas. We also did a study in 2016 to understand more about the members of the Facebook site and found that 50% visited once a week. And very importantly, thinking back to that diagram of who were reaching and who were not reaching, 75% said that they had never been reached before by a CBO or by a peer educator. And that was very important for us. It told us something about the fact that we were reaching a population that hadn't been contacted before by traditional services. And then 38% self-assessed themselves as being at substantial risk of HIV. So we've also had a very fun and dynamic partnership with MTV, I've worked with them over 3 years, and last year implemented a 6-episode series of MTV Bus. So this is a huge bus that drives around Ho Chi Minh City, and it visits MSM, CBOs, key leaders, key artists in the community, and key clinics, and talks about it in a really dynamic and fun way, really emphasizing those 3 key campaign objectives that I mentioned earlier. And so we've gotten a great response from that. Some of you had met DJ Dustin, who was out for a meeting in Bangkok last year. He's super dynamic and has done a lot of great work for the community. So our reach was really broad, 1.5 million individuals, which is really exciting. That's a lot of people in Vietnam. So new service model. So in addition to the media focus, we were then also looking at how to deliver services in a different way. And really focused on working together with the government to change the status quo. So previously, HIV testing services had been offered through facilities only. And in October 2015, based on a desire to better achieve the first 90, the government approved a pilot in 6 provinces to roll out HIV lay and self-testing. So this is the very first time that CBOs, that the community in Vietnam was allowed to offer HIV testing services. So very quickly, the MSM CBOs demonstrated excellent skill in HIV testing, counseling, referrals, and support for ART enrollment. And at the same time that this was happening, there was this wave of social enterprise registration that I mentioned earlier, which was really key because it provided a legal foundation for the CBOs to do much more than they had done in the past. And then this all led to very strong respect and credibility from the Ministry of Health about the important role of MSM-led services. And that translated into registration of MSM-led private clinics. It started off with 2 in Ho Chi Minh City. There's a 3rd that's been added, and now there's a clinic that's soon to open in Hanoi, and there are some opening in other parts of the country. So it's really an exciting model. And I want to share with you now some of the key results from the work of MSM CBOs. So for HIV lay testing from Jan 2016 to September 2017, 23,000 MSM opted for HIV lay testing. The Cascade showed very high reactivity compared to national data. So national data indicated an aggregate of 1.6% HIV positivity yield among MSM in 2016. It was 6.8% among this group. So what it's indicating, what it's telling us is that MSM CBOs are better at reaching those that are at higher risk for HIV. And there was also quite a strong cascade in terms of confirmation and enrollment in treatment. So for HIV self-testing, we see a very similar cascade. And what's really interesting is that between 51 to 58% of MSM opting for either lay or self-testing had never tested for HIV before. And what this tells us is that lay and self-testing were very effective in reaching never testers. And the last part of service delivery that I want to share with you, which is very exciting, is PrEP. So once MSM CBOs had demonstrated their high-quality service delivery in HIV testing, this led to also an opening in PrEP services delivered by key population clinics and CBOs. And so in March 2017, there were 6 MSM CBOs that were doing screening in terms of risk and then PrEP counseling and referrals on top of their lay and self-testing work, and referring clients into key population-led private clinics. So this is quite an exciting approach. And as of December, there were 470 MSM who had enrolled in PrEP, and the retention rate is 82%. So now I want to focus on this mix between new media and new models. Media is exciting, doing online work is great, but how do you measure it? How do you know who you're reaching, and how do you know if they're actually going into services? So this is a question we really grappled with, and we've looked at 3 different ways to try to measure online to offline service uptake. The first thing that we did was we did a sub-study in a few CBOs, and we asked them their reasons for HIV testing. So we wanted to know, why did they test? Did they test because of a face-to-face interaction or because of something that they saw on social media? Secondly, we worked together with online counselors, MSM that were not part of CBOs. They had other social or sexual networks and had big networks online. And they were doing counseling and risk screening online. They were trained to do lay testing, so if a client wanted to test, they could do the test themselves or refer to a CBO. And then they were able to support that client through diagnosis and enrollment on treatment. But then we got feedback from MSM CBOs that some clients didn't want to talk to anybody. They would much rather just go online and make a reservation for testing and then go into testing. So we introduced an app called iReserve. And if I can do this, let's see, yes. Maybe. No, maybe not. Okay, we'll skip that for now. But that was basically to show you how the app works. So the app started off being focused on HIV testing, and we've now included PrEP, STI, ART, and other services. So a client can go online, they can use the app, they can download it, they can book a service, they can go into the service, and we're able to track then what their results are. So this is a conceptual model of this online to offline approach. And the arrow on the further side over here just indicates you've heard about HIV testing through your Facebook account, and then you decided to seek testing. The next one is this online counselor approach, and the last one is using this app. So now I want to show you some of the results. So from I just heard about HIV testing through Samkovong or from some other social media source, we found in the 3 CBOs that we did this short study with, 35% of MSM said it was social media that motivated them to come for a test. And we found a difference in HIV reactivity rates. 8% were HIV reactive, or were HIV positive who were coming in through social media versus 5% from a face-to-face referral. And then this is an aggregate of data from the online counseling and the app. And you can see here that around 73% of individuals who were reached actually came in for a test. And that there was a much higher positivity rate than we even see in lay and self-testing alone, 11%, and all of them enrolled in treatments. Really strong cascade and excellent work from the online counselors. So what are some of the key lessons? I mean, the first obvious lesson is that MSM-led services are key to HIV prevention and to 90-90-90. But there's also some other lessons. What we learned in Vietnam, that co-creation, that working together and really leveraging the skill sets and strengths of different partners has been very helpful to introduce new approaches that have the potential to reach a broader audience of MSM. Also, using an iterative and adaptive process has been really important. So being very flexible and using data to make changes, and also to look at new opportunities for new services or new media. Capacity building has been integral to the work that we do, really fostering the emergence, the leadership, and the sustainability of MSM-led CBOs, social enterprises, and private clinics. And lastly, because there is this decline in external donor funding, and this is a big issue for Vietnam, we see that both government and private sector are really key and essential partners to sustain MSM-led interventions and services. I would like to acknowledge the amazing CBOs and social enterprises and private clinics that we work with and have the honor to partner with. The Ministry of Health for being so innovative and so open in its approaches. I'd like to recognize Dr. Hai, who's here representing the Ministry of Health in particular. Our private sector partners, USAID Vietnam, who's always been a champion of this work, and my PATH colleagues, Dr. Bao, Dr. Hu, and Hong Ang, who are in the audience. Thank you very much. And now, so last thing. So let's now do the poll of, do you think that MSM-led organizations can offer high-quality HIV services? Yes, hands up. Okay, people in the back are raising their hands. That's great. Thank you.